Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Ford, and I lead marketing for CENTEGIX. I want to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar. It is the last installment for this year of our webinar series called Promoting Positive School Climate in Tense Times. I personally have really appreciated the webinar series because it's given me the opportunity to interact in a different way with so many school administrators. And I want to take this opportunity to, again, thank so many of you for the work that you've been doing in these crazy times that we've been in to promote positive school climate so that people can be focusing on the learning environment, keeping our students and staff safe so that they can accomplish their learning. So thank you for that. I want to cover just a small housekeeping matter. I know that we've all got the routine now about webinars. I have everyone on mute just so that we can focus on the comments from Dr. Duncan. But I will be watching for your questions. If you want to communicate with me in the chat window, please do so, and I'll look for those questions as we're going along. So with that, I would like to introduce everyone to our guest for today, Dr. Michael Duncan of Pike County. Dr. Duncan, we're so pleased. I'm excited to have this conversation with you this afternoon. Dr. Duncan has a number of accolades and recognitions underneath his belt. He is the longest serving superintendent in the state of Georgia, having been with Pike County for over 15 years. In 2012, he received the President's Award from the Georgia School Superintendents Association. He received the Bill Barr Leadership Award from the same organization in 2018. And last week at the GSBA conference, Dr. Duncan was named the 2020-2021 Georgia School Superintendent of the Year. Dr. Duncan, it is my honor to be here with you this afternoon.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So big accolades last week with Superintendent of the Year. I understand you've been getting a little bit of ribbing from other superintendents around the country about here you are already on a webinar talking about that.
Yep, they said I was wasting no time capitalizing on the title. I told them I only had 364 more days left and I was going to take advantage of every one of them.
That's great. That's great. So I've done a little bit of homework on you, Dr. Duncan, and I understand that you are, and as your accolades would attest, very well respected across the state of Georgia. And I guess one of the things I didn't mention in your introduction was that Georgia Governor Kemp has appointed you to serve on the Superintendent's Advisory Board. And so through that, you've been able to influence education policy across the state. I know one of the things that is very important to you is culture in a district, and I expect that your recognition and the appointment to the advisory board is because of the success you've had in creating culture. So I would love to hear just a little bit more about what are those things in your district that people talk about when they talk about culture? How have you made that real, and how has it become important?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we as educational leaders, we spend a lot of time in graduate school talking about visioning and missioning and core values and purpose, and then it seems like when we get into our first leadership positions, we are so overcome with what we call those above the line activities, such as creating systems and processes and procedures, that a lot of times the focus on the long-term work of building culture, building relationships, building alignment through your organization sometimes falls by the wayside as you are simply trying to get the work done each day. There's been so much written about culture. We often make it seem very mystical and make it very complicated, but simply said, you know, culture is what most people do most of the time in your organization, and being reflective on what those things are is just the very beginning step to evaluating the culture that you have, making sure it's the one you want, but then asking yourself some really fundamental questions. Who are we as an organization? What do we believe? What behaviors do we value? Why do we do what we're doing? We should have a purpose, and what is that purpose? And more importantly, does our staff and community know what our purpose is? then what are we trying to do? It's that simple missioning process. And a lot of times we stop when we get to that mission place, because that starts to get us above the line where we start to work tactically and strategically in our plans. But that work below the line, that work around core values and beliefs, anchors us in times of great uncertainty. And certainly we're in a time of great uncertainty. And then finally, it's having that theory of action, that strategic plan that says, hey, this is how we're going to make sure all of these things show themselves and are aligned and coherent throughout our organization. And so, once we're aligned, it's about leaders being the chief repeaters of what we believe and why we believe it. I give a lot of my thoughts credit to a man by the name of Dale Peterson, who is an assistant pastor in a mega church up in Minneapolis, Eagle Brook Association, who's done a lot of work around vision and culture and has partnered with me and helped me galvanize my thoughts around creating a vision culture. But really, we have to be very mindful that there's really only a few things that leaders can really do. You plan, you model, you monitor, you confront, and you celebrate. And so when you are clear about your culture, you are clear about what you believe, you're clear about the behaviors you expect to see and what your goals are, then it's about planning, modeling, monitoring, confronting, and celebrating. And I would say, just very simply, being very intentional about executing your beliefs and core values every day in your organization.
That intentionality about execution, can you share with us a couple of the practices or tactics? How does that part become real in one of your schools?
Well, I would give an example that I would give the example of the crisis alert system, but I think we're going to talk about that just a little bit later. But very specifically, I would like to speak to some of our core values. We spent a great deal of time just identifying what are our core values in Pike County, and after spending a great deal of time with the senior leadership and the staff, we said, there are really three core values here that we see in every department, every organization. This is who we are, and our core values are relationships, ownership, and innovation. And you can see those pervasively enacted throughout our organization. I would give an example to say innovation. One of the things that we have done for many years now is we have every year what we call a treasure hunt for great ideas. And simply what we ask is we have a crowdsourced based platform where we ask all of our employees to think about great ideas that they have to improve our school system, improve their classroom, improve their department, improve their school. And so about living your core values, if we want to always seek innovation, then we have to create structures and processes in which we allow everyone to be a part of creating innovative ideas. And so over the course of the last 3 years, we've had 9 different ideas that were voted on by the entire school district. We have piloted 6 of those 9 ideas that came from the staff members. And so that's been a very exciting example of just one of the things that we do that I would say promotes our core value of seeking innovation and creating systems that allow that to become reality.
And the collaborative input so that people have that ownership and can see how their voice can be heard.
Absolutely. It was interesting when we finally decided on those core values, which are so important. It turned out to be ROI, kind of return on investment. We didn't plan on it turning out that way, but it did. But I think that's very powerful because we believe if we are being relational, if we are taking ownership for that which we can control, and we are seeking innovation, then there will be a great return on the investment of our behavior and our effort in terms of student success.
Definitely. So oftentimes the opportunity or the challenge with perpetuating a culture once you defined what you want is addressing those situations where behavior doesn't match what it is that you're expecting or hoping for. Do you have tips for managing situations where behavior doesn't match the culture that the district seeks to have?
When we started talking about our beliefs and our core values, the way we talked about that was really in terms of innovation. It was in terms of these are the guardrails, and if you make a mistake, that is okay. We learn from failure. insofar as that failure was a part of working toward our core values. So if you made a mistake, but you were trying to be in relationship, then that's a learning experience. If you were trying something instructionally that didn't work out so well, that's a learning experience. You were taking ownership of working through our instructional design. And so it's a matter of going back to those basic leadership activities. We must celebrate and confront the behaviors that we want. And so, we have said the easiest way not to be a part of Pirate Nation is to act in a way that is the antithesis of our core values. As long as you are honestly and faithfully working to promote our core values and acting and using those as a guidepost for you, then we want you to take risk because we learn from failure.
Great, thank you. So the past 9 months have certainly been challenging in all kinds of ways. Can you tell us how your district, I guess two things, how is your district doing right now with COVID? How's everybody doing? And have you needed to, how has culture played a role in your response?
That's a great question, Mary. I think this has been such a very interesting time, and our governor here in Georgia has been a very strong advocate of local control for education, and he campaigned on that, and he's lived by that value and that principle, and so he has partnered with all the school districts of Georgia to understand that there is not a one size fits all as we started back to school, and we have begun to understand some of the patterns of community spread. And so in a small community like I'm in, we don't have a lot of box chain retail stores. We don't have a large number of large restaurants. And so community spread has not been overwhelming for us. And so we made the decision to go back to school at the very beginning of August, face to face. And that's worked out very well for us. Of course, like everyone, we've had a large number of students that have had close contact quarantine. But even though we've had somewhat over 1,000 students that have gone out for 14 days for close contact quarantine, only 3 have become COVID positive, and so we're seeing that our plan is working. But going back to the culture, what do you believe, and what are the behaviors that you expect to see? It's focusing specifically on those core values of relationship. To open up our doors face to face, we had to be in relationship with our community. We had to be open and transparent about the things that we were going to do and the way we were going to do it, but more importantly, leading with why we were doing it this way. And our community has been incredibly supportive. Taking ownership, once again, we were taking ownership for the safety of every single child. What has been remarkable to me in the idea of this core value of taking ownership, although our community was not very interested in having students wear masks every day, but students also understanding we were only going to be able to keep our doors open if our teachers stayed healthy, our students have been the greatest advocate for social distancing, especially social distancing from their teachers. And so they have shown just a tremendous amount of ownership to keeping our doors open, keeping school going, and how they are very careful and cautious with their teachers. And so I think that's just really a beautiful thing, and something that has just been very positive for our community, and seeing our young people take such ownership in keeping our school doors open.
I love hearing that the students are really driving that mask wearing and social distancing. So.
And Mary, I would also say our parents have been amazing, and we have so many parents that they're doing the temperature checks before kids to get on the school bus. They're calling us, say, hey, my son or daughter isn't feeling so well today. I'm going to keep them home just in case. And so our parents, even though that meant for so many of them they were having to take a day off work, or they were having to miss work, they were taking tremendous ownership in doing the right thing to keep our schools open. And so our parents have just embraced that core value of taking ownership. And it's really been a very positive thing for our community. I think our community is more united now than it has ever been in the 16 years that I've been school superintendent here.
Wow. Yeah, there's definitely a social contract that comes with COVID positive tests and understanding, am I feeling well and should go to work today or should stay home? So that relationship component has encompass everybody all the way out to the parents in the community.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's shift gears a little bit to crisis alerts. That is one of the reasons that we have a relationship with you. You've been a crisis alert user, CENTEGIX customer for quite some time. If you could take us back to when you first decided that you needed to make a technology investment in safety for your schools, kind of walk us through that thought process that led you to saying, yes, we need crisis alerts.
Well, always looking for a better way, always looking to improve. We realize, like many of my colleagues that are on the webinar today, that most of us have invested lots of money in cameras. If they're like my district, there aren't anyone watching those cameras most of the time. And so they're great for investigative purposes, but how proactive are we being in keeping our students and staff safe if the video cameras are primarily serving an investigative after the fact function? And so when we began to hear about Crisis Alert, trying to find a better way to empower all of our employees, it was just a very obvious choice. And I do believe we were one of the very first districts, I believe. I don't believe we were the first, but we were one of the first, I believe, in districts to go district-wide with the crisis alert system. And it's been very powerful for our culture because it has empowered every single employee. And what we were very intentional on doing was that every single employee, every central office employee, every clerical person, every custodian, every school nutrition worker, every single person that's in a building would have the ability and be empowered to be those extra set of eyes to keep our schools safe and secure. And if they felt, and one of the things that we told them is, if you feel like something isn't right, if your gut's just telling you something's not right, hit the button. We will never be mad at you. We will never be upset with you. We will reward you. You are taking ownership in keeping our children safe. And so we have had a few occasions to where our staff has saw things, felt things that they thought just wasn't quite right. And so we took that pause to investigate to keep all of our children safe. And that's just been a very, very powerful piece over the last couple of years in our school district.
Great. And you and I have talked previously about how the innovation part of your culture and the ownership ties into everybody having that crisis alert badge. And I know you mentioned just a few minutes ago, but there's been some deeper comments that I've heard you make about how teachers really appreciate feeling empowered, that they have that control or that ability.
Absolutely. That has been, to me, outside of just the pure opportunity to have multiple eyes that are keeping our schools safe and secure each day, being in relationship with the staff in a way that we trust them to unilaterally make the decision to shut our schools down sends a powerful message, because what it says to our employees, every single employee, is we trust you. We trust you to make the best decision for our school. And that is a powerful signaling. We often talk about in cultures that are very positive and cultures that are very effective, there is a constant flow of belonging cues where leaders and colleagues are sending belonging cues saying, you belong here, you're a part of this team. And this was a very strong belonging signal to all of our staff. It signaled to every one of them, we are all on the same team here. Everyone has great value in keeping our children and our school safe, and you're a part of that team. And I just can't say enough what a positive impact that's had on our school culture, our district culture.
Yeah, that's great. And can you describe how your board may have been involved in the decision to purchase Crisis Alert? And is there data out of the platform that you share with them? What involvement or awareness do they have?
Well, for us, being a small rural district and not having a very large discretionary budget, of course, they're always very involved in decisions such as these. But we were able to bring in CENTEGIX to demonstrate the product, let them see it live, let them see it and experience it firsthand. But what sold them on it, and what made them so supportive of the idea of allocating that money, was that it did empower every single adult in our school district. And that was just a very, very positive move for the school board. And so they were great advocates from the very beginning. But I really have a really cool story is the system had been in place maybe about 3 months, and we had a couple board members who had some scheduled school visits, and really just PR visits, just coming around, seeing teachers, saying thank you, just appreciation. And as they were standing in the lobby preparing to start some visits with the principal, the crisis alert system went off and alerted the administrators that there was an issue in a classroom. And so just so quickly they received the alert. The school resource officer, the assistant principal, and the principal jumped into action like superheroes, and were in that classroom, in less than 30 seconds. And I remember after the school visits, the board member called me and said, Mike, the crisis alert system went off when I was there and everybody just jumped into action. Man, that thing is so cool. And so, that was a great moment. And then that board member shared at our next board meeting with the other board members that experience of seeing the system live and in action and how quick the response was. And so now, having administrators that can respond to a crisis very, very quickly has been very positive. Just a couple weeks ago, Mary, I shared with you before we went live, just a couple weeks ago, we had a young lady that started having a seizure in one of our hallway restrooms. And so the staff member on duty to check the restrooms, of course, they're not in a classroom, they're not near an all-call button, but right there in the restroom, without having to leave that child, without having to run down the hall, without having to send students to get a message, pulled out their badge and hit their button. And we had the school nurse and an SRO and an ambulance on the way, and we had all that happen just in real time. And so, those things matter because we really didn't know. And luckily the student was fine and everything turned out well, but time matters. And I would say that this product saves us time. And we know, in all of the things that superintendents have seen over the years in response to safety issues, every minute matters.
Yes, thank you for that. Or as we say, every second matters when you're dealing with life.
Yeah. Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
I see it on the tagline now, right? Every second matters.
Definitely. So, Dr. Duncan, when you think about advice you may have for a district that is rolling out crisis alerts, perhaps they're starting their rollout in January, is there any advice that you may have for them, things to keep in mind or best practices?
Well, I think one of the things that I thought we did is we took the fear away from having the button on their lanyard. I think at first everyone was, very frightened that, maybe they set the system off and, and it just creates all this disruption and everybody gets mad at them. I think you have to just be very, very clear up front in giving them that permission to make a mistake, but also letting them understand, look, this is not going to happen. But if it does, that's okay. That's okay, because we know you're doing it for the right reason. And so I think just lowering, a lot of teachers that have never been given that authority, have been given that power, that they can just shut everything down. A custodian can just shut and who's in the hallways? Who's outside seeing what's going on? It's your clerical staff, it's your custodians, it's your coaches. There's all of these people that now are empowered to see what's going on. And so instead of having 20 or 30 cameras, no one is watching, now I have hundreds and hundreds of eyeballs that are processing information and reacting and acting in real time. And it's so powerful.
And that point exactly is something I've heard from other superintendents, is that they just appreciate knowing that anybody anywhere on campus can alert others of help that is needed. So that's
And Mary, what we have in created our system is, when we go into that shutdown mode, our schools are all very close together on one very, very large complex. And so all of the other school resource officers get that notification and respond. And so that school has a tremendous amount of support in seconds. And once again, every second matters.
Right. Got it. So you made the comment about how many times with cameras, there's not somebody there that's actually watching the videos to observe or get data from the output of those cameras. Is there any story that you can share with us about how you all may have used your crisis alert data? So we've talked about how push button help comes, that part has been very valuable. Have there been any instances yet where you've used the data that comes out of the platform to better understand what's happening in the schools or how you may be able to support them?
Mary, we have not gotten into a place where our data is showing any discernible patterns, which is very positive. We have a very wonderful community, and we have a lot of really compliant students, and we're very blessed to have students that come from a community where the parents are great advocates for the school system and teach them personal responsibility at home. And so although we have had several occasions where the system was able to help us respond very quickly, we're currently, as we look at the data, we're not seeing any data that's showing us any patterns that's allowing us to come to any conclusions about structure and processes yet. But we are monitoring that.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I want to just check and see if we have any questions that have come in here. Okay, I do have one question from somebody who's asking if there have been any unique ways that you all have used Crisis Alert considering COVID. Has there been situations, maybe COVID specific, where the platform has been helpful to you, or new ways you found to use it?
Interesting. We haven't done that. But boy, we would love to hear any ideas surrounding how we may be able to leverage the system to help with that. That would be fascinating. So we haven't yet, but if anybody has a good idea of how that might help us, we'd love to hear it.
I'll share with you that I have been doing some feedback surveys from teachers and staff who have initiated alerts. And one of the things that I have picked up from the ways that they're using it differently now is that they're finding that it is an easier way for them to get attention from the school nurse than, say, picking up the phone or verbally telling the nurse, hey, this person looks like they might be COVID positive or demonstrating symptoms, right? That may, incite some reaction that they don't necessarily want. So we do have some districts that are using it as a way to call the nurse. Like, I wouldn't put it in the emergency category, but it's an alerting category to get the nurse to come to help them with a student who may be either suffering from COVID or they need help with that particular type of situation. So it's been an interesting experience for me to get much closer to how teachers are using the badges. And as you've already said, they're just so thankful for a way to get help quickly when they need it.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Oh, we have another question here. Let's see. Yes. So the badges, and with some districts also, we have been helping them use the technology to accomplish our contact alert solution, which enables contact tracing in a district. So because of the way that the technology works, through our reporting interface, we're able to help provide some anonymous notification. If somebody with a badge has tested positive, then we can support the district in sharing with those that badge has been near, that they may have been exposed to a COVID positive person. So I'm happy to talk about that more if you want to think about enabling that feature for your district also. All right, well, we are almost to 2:30. Dr. Duncan, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up? I've so appreciated your time this afternoon.
Well, I would just say, Mary, thank you. You guys have been great partners to the Pike County School System. All of our questions have been answered. You guys have been very responsive. And I would just say to my colleagues that are out there listening, being very clear and aligning those initiatives with your culture and having those partners that reinforce those elements of your culture can just be so powerful. And our job is to be the chief repeater of those things that matter most. And of course, student safety is top priority.
Wonderful, thank you. And I hope that you enjoy your holiday break, Superintendent of the Year.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very humbled. Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.